next up we have Dr. Maanasa Polubothu, who works both as a paediatric dermatology consultant at Great Ormond Street Hospital and as a principal investigator in molecular biology and the rare disease section of GOSH at the Institute of Child Health. She specialises in the clinical management and genetic investigation of complex high-flow vascular anomalies and complex lymphatic anomalies. Maanasa is also an integral part of the rare disease collaborative networks. These are an important part of the NHS architecture initiated by NHS England. Their goal is to improve the care and support of patients living with rare conditions. So we're glad that Maanasa is here today to share more about the rare disease collaborative networks, which may be able to help some of you in the room here today. So welcome Maanasa as she delves into the rare disease collaborative network for mosaic disorder, which is a mouthful.
Thank you, Mandy. It's a very nice introduction. So some of you might have met me before. So as Mandy said, so I'm a consultant paediatrician. I work at Great Ormond Street Hospital. All of my work is in mosaic disorders. Probably about 60 to 70% of my work is in PROS, just because of mosaic disorders is one of the most common. And I work as part of a lot of different clinical teams. So you've had loads of really intense, complicated talks, so this will be a very straightforward one to end the day with. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our journey at GOSH, working with patient groups over the years to try and relabel some of our services as a rare disease collaborative network. And I'll explain to you why, hopefully that's beneficial to doctors, to patients, and I'll tell you about some of the progress we've made with that. So our rare disease collaborative network is given a broader term, mosaic disorders, and you'll have heard lots about mosaic disorders today. We cover lots of different rare mosaic skin conditions, and as I said, of all of them, PROS is probably the most common, so it's probably about 70% of what we see. So mosaic disorder is defined as something that results from a single mutation happening in a cell during development. I know you'll have seen and heard about this today. So the first thing to say is this isn't a new service. These are services that have existed. So I've worked at GOSH for 10 years, but long before my time. So we have a very big clinical infrastructure where we work with lots of different types of doctors, lots of different types of allied health professionals to look after children with mosaic disorders. We're looking after children with PROS before it was called PROS for many, many years. And in parallel to that, Professor Veronica Kinsler, who many of you will have heard of before or maybe heard speak, has started the mosaic disorders, so it's a research service at GOSH, but really with a lot of clinical use. So before people knew what mutations were, before people knew what genes caused which conditions, we were collecting skin from children, running tests in the lab, funding this from lots of different research grants, lots of contributions from patient organisations to try and get families diagnoses for a rare disease. Even now, you'll know you may know from the patient groups, many people won't have a genetic mutation in PIK3CA, but will have lots of features that would suggest they had that. So we still work on getting families genetic diagnoses and clinical diagnoses, because I think it helps with their overall management and it helps put them in the right place to see the right people. So before, we've been doing this work for a long time, clinically and also in the mosaic disorder service, helping patients get a diagnosis. But we took the opportunity to apply for this rare disease collaborative network status. So just to explain what this is first, so this is a highly specialised service for rare disease. And the idea behind it is you can have groups of providers who can share experience, improve research, improve awareness of different conditions, make sure things are standardised where possible, and to make the specialist care as accessible as possible for everybody. So if you live in Shetland, if you live in London, you should have the same access to care at the same age. So I see mostly children, and it's very disappointing to us when we meet children in their late teens who we potentially could have helped much earlier, who still don't have a name for what they have, still haven't been offered genetic testing. So we took this opportunity to apply for this status, to try and improve the service that we deliver, and to bring in more clinicians from around the UK. So our application was supported by the Chief Executive of our hospital. They're very keen to promote improved treatment for rare diseases. It's one of the main ethoses at Great Ormond Street. And also by multiple patient support groups from mosaic disorders. And we set out our aims at the start, so really overall we wanted to increase knowledge and understanding of mosaic disorders for doctors treating them around the UK, to progress research. So we do a lot of clinical and laboratory research at GOSH, but many other people are doing amazing research in the UK. You heard lots this morning from Rob and Relitza. So having awareness of these networks helps promote research, and as Rob said, people working together makes things move for small rare diseases. And to improve the patient experience. So really, equity of access is really important. We hear it constantly from our different rare disease groups that people, somebody up in the north of England can't even get a GP to refer in locally, will never get to us. So really improving the patient experience, particularly access. And then the specific aims for our RDCN are to reduce the mean time to first seeing a specialist. As I said, we see many teenagers who've been waiting for years. To reduce the number of trips to the specialist centre. So we are in London, and there's a tendency for people who work in London to think it's the centre of the UK, but it really isn't. But a specialist centre can definitely direct care, but can be delivered locally. So instead of having to come down to the specialist centre for every blood test, every MRI scan, for the specialist centre dictating care and actually it being done close to your house in a way that doesn't impact on your life, particularly the kids. You don't want to take them out of school multiple times. To improve access to an accurate clinical and genetic diagnosis. So it's great that we have genetic testing now, it's great that we have terminology that we can easily use to label children, but still many people are wrongly diagnosed. There's other conditions that look like pros, there's other conditions that look like pros but have a different genetic basis. So being seen by a specialist will make sure you get the right diagnosis early on, and that might have implications for how your disease is going to progress or what drugs you will get in the future. Also to improve transition from paediatric to adult services. So in paediatrics, particularly in a centre like mine, where everybody I would refer to works under the same roof and we work very closely together, we speak almost every day, it's very easy to have coordinated care. In adults, I know it's not. And I know in other parts of the country, your specialist plastic surgeon might work at a different hospital to your specialist radiologist or something like that. So trying to improve transition, so when we send you on from Great Ormond Street, you're going to the right specialist for what you'll most likely need in the future. And also to improve coordination of care, as we said, between the local hospitals and the RDCN, so coordinating tests, etc. So we were successful in getting this. We've now had it for about a year. For our first year, we had 3 main aims. The first was to open an adult clinic. So that would make it very easy, particularly our patients on trials, on very rare medicines that we've accessed compassionately, to easily transition to an adult service. Secondly, to reduce the mean referral age. So we really want to be seeing infants. We don't want to be seeing school-aged children. And again, there may be early interventions, or even if we're not going to offer an intervention, I think being assessed by a multidisciplinary team, everybody who you might need to see, and being told that nothing is done is actually, in our experience and from patient feedback, is very reassuring. It may be that nothing needs to be done, but if you haven't seen all the people, you'll worry that your child's perhaps missing out on something. So reducing mean referral age to seeing infants, and to reduce the number of visits to hospitals by streamlining provision of care, so in our hospital, but also the coordination again between the local hospitals and our main hospital. So in terms of our aim, so we've set up our adult site, so in London again, so St John's Institute of Dermatology. So Professor Vabra, who you just met, who just spoke about alpelisib, runs that, and then we run our site at Great Ormond Street with a very big multidisciplinary team. I'll tell you a bit more about that at the end. All of this information is available, I think, on the website. Is that right? Yeah, so I won't go over this, but essentially the criteria is broad, so any small manifestation that you might get, like growth, any skin, any vascular anomaly, any skin lesion, you can be referred in with that as an individual lesion. Or if you have a suspected mosaic disorder, so if it's not sure but you have something that looks a bit asymmetric, any type of birthmark really, any sort of vascular condition. So any of those can be referred in. We've kept it as broad as possible because there'll be cohorts of children who don't really fit into something. It may be that their genetic diagnosis is something different, but just coming through clinic, knowing what it's not, having the correct tests will be really important for that cohort. So if you have a suspected mosaic disorder, but no clinical diagnosis, or if you have a clinical diagnosis but you want a genetic diagnosis, and we're very much of the opinion that everyone should have a genetic diagnosis because of the way that treatments are going, obviously, it will stratify you and make you eligible for different therapies. Or you might already have a clinical and genetic diagnosis, but you may have a new problem that's come up. You can come back to see us either as a child, or you can go to the adult centre. And a really important part of this network, so again, not everybody wants to come to London for everything, is really building up a massive network of local consultants around the country. So most people who live in different areas will have a consultant looking after them, but it might be a paediatrician, it might be an oncologist, it might be a geneticist, but those people will probably not have a lot of children with PROS. They'll maybe have one or two. We're in clinics with them every week, so the way to best manage them would be to give them the information we have, but let them direct care, because they've obviously are the people who will see them day to day, see them in an emergency. So when you get referred in, you should have a named consultant. So that can be from any specialty, surgical, medical, but that would be the consultant who would be responsible for enacting out your plan. So hopefully we've made it, the patient referral pathway, more straightforward, and I do think we've had more referrals from different places recently, and also referrals just for second opinions, so children who are very well cared for but would like to come and see the full team just to check everything's good. So I think it's working well so far. As I said, referral criteria is broad, so even if you have something unusual and you think, oh, maybe it doesn't fit, you can still come, because we still might be able to give you some useful information. We'll take referrals directly from GPs, which most tertiary centres won't, but specifically for mosaic disorders we will. You just need to name a local consultant on the form at a time. And then we're hoping to build up a very structured patient experience. So it's very much, you'll get this list of investigations the first time you come, and then we'll book you in for a second set. So the whole thing will hopefully be very structured. And that's kind of what we do at the moment, but to make it even more systematised, to make it more straightforward for people travelling to London for a day to get loads of different things done. So these are the two different pathways, so one for paediatrics and one for adults, but very similar. The first visit consists of an outpatient visit, some investigations on the day, perhaps a biopsy, and then anything else we think you need at our centre, you'll come back and have all those investigations in the same day. And then following that, we'll communicate your plan to your local doctor, and then they'll be able to do things locally, and you may come back and see us again, or that might be enough information for your local doctor to enact a plan. So you should leave clinic with a personal management plan, so we'll have a standardised format. It will talk about all the different aspects of your particular condition and what you might need, and that will be distributed to you. You'll have a copy, your specialist centre will have a copy, and your GP will have a copy. And then another advantage will be multidisciplinary meetings. So if you've been into the RDCN to see us at any point, but you have a problem in the future, your local team can bring you back to an MDT at any point. And the MDT will have experts in it from our centre, the adult centre. If we need a particular type of expertise, we can bring it in. And then you can be discussed without having to come all the way back down. And at the moment we run these free monthly virtual, they're really good educational seminars for local doctors who again don't see all the different types of PROS and all the different complications, but they can come to that and learn a bit more, see some patients who might be similar to the patients they have. And then a big part of the RDCN is education. So we've run patient group information days at GOSH for a long time, and we'll continue to do that. Normally we have lots of mosaic disorders on the same day, because there's lots of parallels in a way you're clinically managed, but also in research as it goes on. Usually the patient group reps will come, and then we'll give you written information to feed back to your groups. So the next one will be in spring next year. And then the other educational aspect of this is really to upskill and educate local consultants. So once a year in London, but we'll have a hybrid meeting, so you can come face to face, it can be virtual. It can be for any doctor in the UK who's a named local consultant. This will be research updates, updates on new drugs, advances, also chats for everyone to meet, and again, informal discussion of things that are happening and patients. So this year we had a successful, so this wasn't part of the RDCN officially, but it coincided nicely with the start of the RDCN. But we had a PROS update and advances in MDT care day at GOSH. So this was a panel of people, and it's all the sorts of doctors that you might see if you're PROS over your lifetime. So we had some of my very close colleagues, so plastic surgeons, orthopaedics, interventional radiology. We had Mandy and Lucy, an impressive Barbara who you heard from, and also Professor Kinsler. And really this was a day for local doctors to try and understand the different facets of PROS and how you might manage them. So if you're somewhere and you've never had a patient with this before, and you think, who do I refer this patient to? Because all of these different types of doctor will see this patient. But to try and understand which problems need to be referred to which specialties and how different doctors can help. So I think it was, we got very good feedback from the day, and I think it was useful. And I think it was useful in particular, probably more than my talk on medical management. I think people were happy to hear from the surgeons and the interventional radiologists, because they showed a lot of things that you might have read of online, but you wouldn't be aware of otherwise. Oh, so we had 120 participants, overall very positive feedback of the day. They felt they met the objectives of the day, which was to increase understanding both for referral pathways and different aspects of management. So that's something that we will hopefully run again. So just to conclude on the setting up the RDCN, why we did it, the success we've had so far, this is really born from patient groups and patient groups asking for more streamlined care. And knowing what we offer, but really improving equity care around the UK. And I think I think we'll have a proper statistics for you in about a year when we look at our referral criterion, look at how many people we've accepted and what the mean age of referral is. But at the moment, it seems to be working well, and I think we're seeing, again, more children who are very well cared for in other places, but who are coming for a second opinion or coming for a genetic diagnosis. We can do some extra things in the lab, so yeah, so far it's going well. And then finally, I just wanted to give you a bit of information about the team that I work in paediatrics at Great Ormond Street. So we work as part of a very huge MDT who look after complex vascular anomalies and overgrowth syndromes. We all have independent clinics, and then in a month we'll have up to 40 joint clinics, so I'll do clinics with different sorts of people. Often we'll do ad hoc things where we'll see patients, because again, our patients come from all around the country, so we try to, where possible, see you together. It doesn't always work out that way, but particularly for PROS, and again, it makes up the bulk of our work, certainly the bulk of my work. We've dedicated clinics for overgrowth. We're really invested in trying to address some of the problems that Pierre outlined. So the natural history of PROS not being well understood, objective outcome measures for trials aren't well defined. So really trying to understand about the natural history of the disease. Every child gets discussed in an MDT. Genetics, a genetic test is usually offered at the first opportunity. So if you're having a surgery, you'll definitely be offered a genetic test, but we may expedite that. And again, that's because it may give you more information on your prognosis for things that look like PROS but aren't and need to be treated differently. And also will make you eligible for trials of targeted therapies when they come. And then we do lots of clinical research, again, the different teams do things together, trying to outline the natural history, trying to look at the disease burden and quality of life. We have a team of psychologists looking at different psychological aspects. I know you had a very good talk this morning. And this will help us be very well set up for when clinical trials of personalised targeted therapies. So I'll tell us about it because at the end there'll be other things in works. We're working on some different types of therapies in our lab. So our lab focuses on genetic studies, lots of different types of models of PROS, so looking at organoid models. We work with different professors, different types of labs, so we're mostly a genetic lab, but we work with vascular biologists and other teams as well. We're working on a genetic therapy stream with Professor Kinsler, who, again, you may have met before. There are exciting things happening in our lab, and again, you've heard about them. So these are some useful links. So this is a link to the adult clinic at Guy's, and also our paediatric mosaic service. So if you click on here, it gives you the information for how to get your child referred in, referral criteria. Again, we take referrals from GPs, and it's worth you saying that to your GP, because the GP might not tell you that. You can share these links with your local doctors. Encourage them to be part of the network. Again, it's useful for them from an educational point of view and being kept up to date. And doesn't require a lot of commitment for them other than taking care of you, which they would be doing anyway. And then this is a book that our department just published together. So it's a handbook for paediatric vascular anomalies. It covers PROS, all overgrowth syndromes. It's a very MDT approach, so it's written by surgeons, interventional radiologists, geneticists, everyone you can imagine. There's a really excellent psychology chapter, really excellent chapter written by one of our expert haematologists. So it's a very useful resource, particularly if you don't see many children with PROS. It might be useful for your local doctors. So yeah, that's me. Hopefully I've given Mandy time to speak. Thank you.